In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the front calipers on this Nissan Altima, located right behind your front wheel, so let's get started. If your vehicle has hubcaps, remove those first. Just simply pull on them and set them aside. Use a 21mm socket and remove all 5 lug nuts and then remove the wheel. With a collection bucket underneath to catch any potential drippage, use a 12mm socket or wrench and break the banjo bolt free off the old caliper. I won't be removing it just yet, but I will be breaking it free. Alright, and once it's broken free, snug it up just a little bit. This is going to help you loosen it up later once the caliper is dismounted. Use a 12mm socket and remove the 2 slider pin bolts that hold the caliper onto the bracket. Leave this one on a couple threads and remove the top one. Now remove both. And give the caliper a little squeeze so you can push that piston back just a tiny bit so you can remove it easier. Set this up on top of the knuckle so it doesn't pull on the brake hose. Remove the pads. Just slide them out. Now with a 22mm socket, remove the 2 bolts that hold the bracket onto the knuckle. Leave this in a couple threads so it can hold this on while we remove the top one. Remove them both and pull the bracket away. Now on this caliper bracket, you want to put a little bit of silicone paste or brake grease right on the area where the anti-rattle clips go. And you don't want a lot, because if you put too much, it's going to squeeze out when you put the anti-rattle clips on and get onto the rotor. But you do want to coat it so that rust doesn't form. And you want to take your anti-rattle clips, and both are the same in this case. Snap them on, make sure they seat completely and are locked in. Flip it over and we'll do the same on this side. Just like that. Now we have to remove the slider pins and add grease to these. One of them will have a vibration damper, this little sleeve right here. So what I'm going to do is take some of my silicone paste or brake grease, whatever you have, and add it to the slider pin. You don't need a lot here. You can't put too much actually, because it's just going to get wiped off as you slide it into the boot. However, inside the boot, you can put a little bit, just a little extra, and work it into the folds of the boot. That's going to act as a reserve of grease as this operates over time. Slide the pin back in. There will be excess air stuck in here, so push on the slider pin and squeeze the boot. As you can see, that lets all the air out. Work it in. Make sure you give it a couple twists so that the grease works into this slot where the boot seals up. Wipe off any excess grease, flip it over, do the same on the other side. Now the other pin does not have one of those vibration damper sleeves. Also, sometimes these boots are really tight on here, so if you have to help it out with something, just make sure it doesn't tear. And as you can see, this is just a solid pin, no damper on here, so you want to make sure that they go back where they came from, because they're built like that for a reason. Add a little bit of grease in here, work it in, slide the pin all the way in, get the air out. Sometimes you have to use the pocket screwdriver to pry the boot out just so you can get the air out of it. There we go. Any excess grease will also come out. However, try not to put too much to begin with. Now this caliper bracket is ready to go back on the vehicle. Take the caliper bracket, slide it over the knuckle, and put the 2 bolts in. Snug them up. The torque for these 2 bolts is 107 foot-pounds. Now let's get the pads in. These spring tabs, you have to push in with the pad, and you want to make sure that this tab on the pad, if yours has it, goes on the top and hooks over the outside of the caliper bracket. You want to twist the pads in like that, so put them in sideways. Watch out so the top doesn't pop out. This is normal that it sits like that. That's what this spring is for. I'll show you on the other pad so you can see it better, but you want to make sure that this thinner tab goes up over the caliper bracket, but this thicker one goes underneath the anti-rattle clip, keeping the pad pushed down. So you have to put the top in first, and then the bottom. It's kind of a lot to line up at once here. There we go. Make sure they stay. Take the caliper, slide it over. Have the 2 bolts ready to start into the slider pins. The torque on these is 20 foot-pounds. Remove the new banjo bolt with the 2 new copper washers. Take one washer off, but leave the other one on because the hose will go in between the 2. From the old caliper, remove the banjo bolt. Fluid will leak at this point, so make sure you have a collection bucket underneath to catch it. Make sure both of the copper washers came off of this hose. In my case, one did, but the other one is stuck on here. Usually what works best is if you grab this with some pliers and pinch it. There we go. Now with a clean surface here, stick the new bolt with a new washer through, put a new copper washer on the other side as well, and start this into the caliper. The torque for this banjo bolt is 15 foot-pounds. Your goal is to just crush these copper washers a little bit to create a nice tight seal. Once you achieve that, you're good to go. At this point, I like to spray this area with brake parts cleaner to get the brake fluid off of the hose and the back of the caliper so that I know if there is a leak. And now with a 10mm wrench, pop open the bleeder screw so we can do a gravity bleed. This entails letting gravity pull fluid into the caliper, filling it up, and pushing the air out. Now at the end of this, even though this should take care of the air that's in the system, if you wanted to do a manual brake bleed, you'll see at the end of the video how to do that. For now though, I'm just going to wait for the gravity bleed to be done, and once I get no more air bubbles out of this, I can close it off and continue. I have a nice steady trickle of fluid, so I'm going to close this off. When you tighten these up, you don't need to make them very tight because they can break or round off. Remove any brake fluid that has dripped on here and cap this off so it doesn't get debris inside of it. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern. Also in a cross pattern, torque them to 83 foot-pounds. Once again, 83 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them if you want. If your vehicle had hubcaps, make sure you put them on correctly, and that is with the cutout here on the valve stem, otherwise it's not going to go over. Line that up and press these on. And of course, if you didn't, at this point you would be done, so go ahead and pump up the brake pedal so that you can seat the pads up against the rotor, take it for a road test. Under the hood, you'll find the brake master cylinder on the driver's side, right behind the air filter housing. Wipe off any debris that might be around the cap so that when you remove it, none of it gets inside the master cylinder. Turn the cap counterclockwise and pop it off. And as you'll see right on the cap, it says that it takes .3 brake fluid, so make sure you have plenty on hand for this brake bleed. What I'm going to do first is actually remove the fluid that's already in the master cylinder. I like to start with fresh fluid, and to do that, there's a little screen in here that you have to pull up on. Now, sometimes these get stuck, so we might have to use a pocket screwdriver or a little pick to pull this up. Otherwise, you cannot remove the old brake fluid to begin with. There it is. Set that aside. Now you can use anything that will extract brake fluid safely to remove the old fluid from the reservoir. I'm going to use a vacuum pump with a little reservoir and suck it all out. If you have a fluid extractor, you could use that, or anything that'll fit down there that'll remove the brake fluid. All right, that's about as much as I'm going to be able to remove. You'll never be able to remove 100% of it, but the more you can get out, the better, so that you can start with more fresh fluid. Put this little screen back in so that when you add brake fluid, everything gets filtered, just in case. Top this off with clean brake fluid all the way up to the max line. You can see it right there. You may need a funnel for this, since the cowl will actually be in the way of the master cylinder for you to top it off with brake fluid. Go slow, because these screens often prevent the brake fluid from flowing in very fast. That one bottle filled it up completely, so let's cap off the master cylinder so that debris and moisture don't get in. Brake fluid is hydroscopic, so it does absorb moisture. And now let's begin the brake bleed. The bleed sequence for this vehicle starts at the right front wheel, move over to the left front and bleed that, then top off the master cylinder, then move over to the right rear, and then the left rear is where you're going to end. Now, if you do need to repeat the process after this, if you feel that the brake pedal is not firm enough and you think you still have air in the system, repeat the process in the same sequence. And of course, don't forget to top off the master cylinder after every other wheel. Now we're at the right front caliper, and I have an assistant in the vehicle ready to pump up that brake pedal to create pressure in the system. Go ahead and pump. All right, they're holding, so I'm going to put this hose on. This will direct the flow of brake fluid so it doesn't go all over the place. And with a 10mm wrench, I'm going to open this up while they hold. And fluid comes out. Once the pedal reaches the floor, we can close this off. Go ahead and pump again. All right, we just want to do this until we see no air bubbles. This was a clean stream of brake fluid, so let's do it one more time. All right, this is nice clean fluid with no air bubbles. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I'm going to remove this. If you spilt any brake fluid, use brake parts cleaner to clean this off. And once it's dried up, go ahead and cap the bleeder screw off. Now we'll move on to the left front. After the two front wheels, it's time to top off the master cylinder. So remove the cap and fill it up to the max line. Once it's full, put this back on. With the master cylinder topped off, we're now at the right rear wheel. This is our third caliper. I'm going to remove the bleeder screw cap, and the assistant in the vehicle can go ahead and pump. They're holding pressure. This is an 8mm bleeder screw now, so downsize from the front. Go ahead and open this up while they're holding pressure. And once the pedal has reached the floor, you can close it up and go ahead and pump again. All right, they're holding, going to open again. And let's do this again. Go ahead and pump. All right, this was clean. Let's do it one more time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can release the brake pedal. Take this off, and once again, if any spilt, you can go ahead and clean this off with brake parts cleaner. Wipe it off, and cap off the bleeder screw so it doesn't get debris in there. Move over to the left rear wheel and do the same thing. Now that we're all done, let's top off the master cylinder one last time, take the cap off and fill it up all the way to the top. With it full, close this off, and if you need to continue bleeding, go ahead until your brake pedal feels nice and firm with the engine off. But if you think you are completely done with the brake bleed, the wheel torque is 83 foot-pounds, so put all the wheels back on and take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.